Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first AMA of Q2 2021. And joined today with Famous Amos that everybody knows, and as well the rest of the team as well. We got Žiga, Branimir, Tomaž, and Žiga. How's everyone doing today? Good, thumbs up. And on behalf of the community, I just want to say that we're sorry to hear about your grandmother, Žiga.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it would really mean a lot if we could devote this AMA to both of my grandparents. Actually, my grandpa passed away just 2 days ago, following grandma in a week's time. So actually, I think it would be great to devote this not only to them, but to anybody that passed away, to any of you guys in the community. And I guess it would really help if we could have just 1 minute of silence before we continue with the AMA.
All right. Well, sorry to hear about that, man. And it's been a tough year for a lot of people. And I think everybody here kind of knows somebody within this last year, from especially COVID or related. And it hasn't been easy, but we're just hoping 2021 just gets better, right? With vaccines coming out and everything else. So,
I mean, the thing is, we have been given so much by these people that are now gone. But what we have created so far in the community, it's really amazing. OriginTrail has the best fundamentals, and there are so many new people, new organizations joining in, and it's really making us all very much happy. And the roadmap that we're mostly going to discuss today, and the questions, I feel are going to very much nicely cover the exciting things that are happening. And it's very much important to, again, point out to what we wrote in the white paper a few years ago. OriginTrail is not a company, but rather an ecosystem. And it feels amazing to hear and to see stuff that is now being built in the ecosystem by companies, by you guys, by the community. And things are only getting bigger with an acceleration. It's going to be interesting to cover all those points which are now focusing around the OriginTrail ecosystem growth acceleration. So the project code name Otega is gonna, we feel, bring a lot of new kind of elements that are going to further lubricate the growth of the ecosystem. So we're happy to dig into the questions, and thank you once again, Amos, Guinnessstache, for being with us, and also Yuri Škornik, GM of Trace Labs, which is joining us today instead of Anna. Anna, she has some things to do, so we might also see Yuri jumping in, perhaps giving his view on the recent developments with one of the most exciting projects, governmental projects, and the things that are now coming out, which are really going to blast the universe.
hey, the more the merrier, man. There's always those questions, though. Be warned that they don't like to answer. So usually Tomaž gets stuck with them, but now you're going to be the guy that gets stuck with those. So just give you a heads up.
Yeah,
all right.
I'll be prepared.
Finally, you know what I mean?
All right, let's open it up. I'm going to do when exchange question. The team has mentioned they were working on a TRAC listing and new T1 exchanges. Is this still a priority for OriginTrail? So have we made any headway there? Anything you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of things that have already happened in the first quarter. So there's one thing that is absolutely necessary before you have the chance to list a token to the tier 1 exchange, and that is have a wider institutional support. So we're very happy that we were joined by right now a handful of quite strong institutional supporters, and this is creating kind of an ecosystem around the Trace token that is going to make it possible for the token to get listed to the tier 1 exchanges. And the tier 1 exchanges typically, so the ones that are most legitimate, they're not taking any kind of bribery to get listed. They're looking into project fundamentals, they're looking into growth, they're looking at the community support. And of course, it seems that they really want to see that there are strong institutional supporters, which are then somehow creating an ecosystem for the project to be successful in the future. And the good thing is that not only we are now growing in terms of the institutional support, but also at least a couple of the current supporters, not only they are supporting OriginTrail, the token itself, on a path to the tier 1 exchanges, but also they're offering their own ecosystem solutions to be connected to OriginTrail. And this is going to create a lot of compounding effects, and kind of the roadmap, the new roadmap also ventures into that. So bottom line, there is progress. I feel that from the outside it's not visible, but definitely it's very much kind of noticeable if we look on this topic through the perspective of the institutional support, which is here, and it's only growing.
And even seeing some of the, the new outside partners that we've seen, at least heard of, even just like Alpha Sigma Capital, Greg Kidd's environment. And it seems like the writing's on the wall. At least the project's really getting noticed now by a lot of those bigger VCs and some of those backers of some of the big projects out there. So I think it's just a matter of time, right? Until we start seeing some of that pay off, I'm sure. All right, cool. Is there a plan to work with node deployment companies to make it easier for new folks to start managing nodes? So like, I think what some people are wondering, and you can only make it so easy, right? We've had this question before to some degree, and Brandon, and I will be the first one to tell you, and we even say it as a community when people are running nodes, don't just think of it as a one and done, right? So yeah, anybody can hold your hand and get a node up and running, but what happens when it's not working? And but some people were wondering if there would be at least be an easier way for setting one up, and even like maybe like, is there any chance of something like a DigitalOcean like Docker app or something that might come out, or something along those lines?
Yeah, DigitalOcean, it's very great that you mentioned them. Actually, we're in a very close contact with the DigitalOcean leadership, and would be interesting to see how we could potentially convince the likes of DigitalOcean. I believe they also successfully finished their IPO.
Yep.
So it might be, it's a great idea. I never thought of it, but it would be interesting to see what we could potentially do together with DigitalOcean. But I guess it's more Branimir's domain.
Yeah,
sorry.
Actually, you haven't been part of some of the discussions that we already had, which were going in that direction. DigitalOcean has a marketplace of pre-existing VMs that you can install, virtual machines, and you can install Linux, Ubuntu, whatever, 1604, or some sort of specific software. Well, one of the idea is that potentially one of those would be the OriginTrail Decentralized Knowledge Graph node. But also there's, apart from making it easier, which we can always improve on. So there's definitely things that that can be eased out, let's say, in the installation process. We've worked a few things out already, and those are going to be in the pipeline in this quarter as well. They're not like a big, let's say, point to
in the roadmap or something.
Put it on the roadmap, yeah. But it's more like, it's easier for you to create a config file for the beginning, or things like that you can just kind of make sure that it's, or at least it's harder to make a mistake. So there's definitely going to be improvements on that front. But what we've been focused on, and I feel hasn't been as much talked about, was really improving the capabilities of the nodes running on various different cloud environments. So for example, Azure has been something that we've been deploying and testing with Microsoft Azure when it comes to the high availability setup. So it's basically Azure compatible, and this was the harder part, let's say, to make the highly available node work with specific infrastructure. That means load balancers, how to connect all of this, and this can be very tricky on a network level. So taking this, in a way, this was something that was much more, let's say, needed because of really having this enterprise focus. So in terms of getting enterprises have that capacity to deploy highly available systems that they need in different environments, that was one of the kind of things to prioritize, and we didn't obviously speak about it too much, but definitely coming up in both that sector, how to make that be easier, how to make a regular node be installed easier, for sure, that's part of our ongoing efforts.
Yeah,
and when it comes to companies running just nodes and services for that, that's also going to be, I think, much easier, and also there's going to be much more things to do with the upcoming tools that are going to be released. So there's going to be a few more services than just running and maintaining a node for someone.
And is it possible we end up seeing like a new Houston type thing, application come out where for the management piece? I mean, you're wrong. OT Hub's been amazing and Luke. I just want to give a shout out to Luke. I mean, the guy's done some crazy things with OT Hub. But do we see some team built tools that be coming out soon, like a new Houston or something like that?
Yeah. So part of the tools, we can segment them. So there's going to be some tools that are going to be more developer oriented. Mm-hmm. And these are, when you look at a lot of the knowledge tools, but also there's going to be node tools that are going to help you manage it, install it, back up things, do all kinds of controls on it, and that involves Houston as well. So there's a version that we have, I believe, put in the roadmap in Q4, because we want Houston to be a comprehensive tool that allows you to do all the cool things that the new tools will be providing. So if you want to have visibility of what the node is doing and what type of things you have enabled on your node, then Houston should not take only part of that and enable you to utilize that, but rather take into account all the new tools and things that are coming out in Q3. So Q4 is where we plan to wrap it around and have a new version of Houston.
Awesome. Amos, you want to take this these next questions? I know you're all about the kTokens. I still don't even fully understand them. I'm not going to lie. So,
I mean, I think we're all learning here. Anyway, so yeah, we have a couple questions coming in this kTokens category. Of course, let's start off with, what are the anticipated tokenomics of kTokens? How will these tokens bring value to node runners? Basically, what are kTokens is pretty simplistic. But also, I think we'd like to also elaborate upon, is there standards for these kTokens? For example, ERC 721s, ERC 1155s, what, I guess, more details on the literal makeup of a kToken and how can it bring value?
Yeah, so this one is also for me. I'll try to explain as much as I can without the actual paper out, which the topic is kind of complex in the sense of putting it in the context. But so like I said, I'll try and be simplifying here. So the tokenomics first is something that needs to be observed from the perspective of trace tokenomics. So basically, it's there to extend the tokenomics of TRAC trace token. There's not going to be like a separate influence or a separate tokenomics in that sense. So it's built directly on trace, and there are certain features that they will enable. One, for example, the most obvious one would be access control for the knowledge within the knowledge wallets, and then these tokens can implement access control on different levels. And that's where we get into the implementation details, the questions like what type of standards to be used. And ideally, the spec is going to encompass any ERC existing or emerging standard for tokens. The idea is not to invent something and close it down and be like, okay, this is going to use, I don't know, ERC 721 and that's it. No, it's rather an ability to compose. So if you have, let's say it like this, there's going to be ERC20 based knowledge tokens, ERC 721 knowledge tokens. There's going to be 1155 knowledge tokens. You can build all of them depending on what you need. And for example, one of the first implementations of this is going to be an NFT-like version, where basically the NFT is not going to be, what the NFT today is really a limited number or one of a certain token in Ethereum in a contract, and this contract has a spec that it points to some data outside of the contract that can be an IPFS or can be just a regular link. I'm sure whoever is familiar with NFTs has had that question pop in mind, like what happens when that link is no longer available, right? So if it points to whatever address, what have I bought? And the idea here is to extend this vastly from moving from the concept of link to a concept of decentralized identity, that identity in the sense of how a knowledge graph represents identity. So, and again, I can go very wide here, and I won't, but I encourage everybody to look into what URIs do in terms of knowledge graphs, decentralized identifiers, and how ontologies fit into this. So essentially, you would be able to represent a very highly structured, machine understandable amount of knowledge, like a data set, perhaps an evolving data set, with a knowledge token. And with these knowledge tokens, you can regulate access to them, but not only access, also really operational control. So who's allowed to contribute to the data set, or who is allowed to update, or and so on. So these operations are something that are going to be governed by the kTokens. If you involve a little bit of, let's say, what's the word in English? Let's think about now the token side of having this enable access to existing tooling in the, let's call it the DeFi sphere. So for example, things like Uniswap, which take pairs of tokens. Well, imagine pairing these new knowledge tokens with Trace, and that enabling a market for them. So let's say hypothetically, when you're looking at Google and there's search queries in Google, you can look at search trends, right? So a lot of people use that as a metric. That means that something is more popular, right? So in this case, that also means that if there's a lot of searches for the same thing on a network, that means more resources being used for that, right? More of queries focused on processing, like, or part of the network focused on working on a high load, perhaps. And this obviously is something to be tokenized in the service sense. And therefore, a knowledge token would allow you to, for example, increase the value of this, rather than just having a lot of load and somehow making sure to figure it out. You could actually tokenize this market opportunity. And that's that's me trying to explain it in short. I hope that was a little clear.
I think it was clear enough for anyone that's willing to go back and really dive into the details. One quick addition to that, or I guess quick question, is moving away from the links to more, I guess, DIDs also increases the persistence, correct? For example, it's not just going to die. These things live forever. So you're making persistent NFTs, or at least making all the components of an NFT itself significantly more, well, I guess, increasing its longevity.
It's NFTs done right, quote unquote, so that you really have something associated with it that has the properties that you would expect from an NFT to have, versus maybe having just a digital asset, which is movable and all that, but it doesn't associate necessarily with something that as well has the property of being immutable, of having that persistence that you would want to have. And when it comes to knowledge graph, has also all the structures, the connections, the possibility to grow. So for us, it's really like a nice tool, right? Of how you can play around for the access to the knowledge graph. OriginTrail having all the flexibility of private subgraphs with a public graph, and all of that, you can really tinker around and use almost like a key, these different tokens. And then it really is up to you how you play around with it. And obviously the effect on tokenomics is that the knowledge graph is being utilized. So that's the Trace is being utilized because of that. On Starfleet, if you're minting your knowledge tokens there obviously that's an effect on Trace as well. But on the other hand, it also opens up possibility for you to set up your own tokenomics around the access control to the knowledge. So that's where really it's cool stuff can start happening, where you can decide, how many you want to, what's the total supply of whatever you're minting. Does it make sense for you for it to be an NFT, or do you want to have it as something that is fungible? Do you want to create the market around it so that it actually increases in value compared to the knowledge that's behind it? Or you can really go in a lot of flexible ways and use this tool basically to serve your purpose. But at the same time, yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's like OriginTrail is like the knowledge Ethereum, or
Right, it's knowledge graph of knowledge graphs. So it's
right,
we've said it in. So it's it's really starting to expand and trying to make it very inclusive and being able to cross different blockchain ecosystems in a multi-chain fashion, to cross different knowledge graphs those that are already existing and are up and coming, or and then create a suite of tools that just allow you to leverage this as much as possible. So knowledge tokens, it's don't necessarily have to be really like you have to be perceived in the context of the knowledge graph and everything else that revolves around the OriginTrail. So it's not just something that's taken like an extra, an addition, a bolt-on something, but it's rather an advancement of the already existing access controls that we have today with another tool which can really like bring it to the next level and allow its users to play around much more also in terms of their own tokenomics and utilize really the foundation of OT as a starting point.
And also, as you were able to see in the new roadmap, the this economy tool, the new economy tool, has been kind of expedited because we saw a lot of interest in the market. You were able to read about the whiskeys and about the exciting things happening in the kind of supply chains and how knowledge economy tools like the NFTs, supported by the decentralized knowledge graph, can be used for physical products. But there is much more to it. As I said, with the institutional support, there comes a massive ecosystem of already existing builders that are either going to exploit DKG to upgrade the capabilities of their products, or we're also going to see that the transferability of the data itself, so the portability angle plus the support for the trace token, is most likely going to be added into some of those services in which OriginTrail is becoming part of the ecosystem. So it's all based on the kind of validation that we have received recently, or like in the past years also, because this thing has been dragging along for a long time. But of course, we did not want to jump into it without having proper validation and actual builders wanting this. And now that there's an ecosystem, now that there's demand, we are expediting this, and Q2 is going to hopefully yield kind of quite a comprehensive set of frameworks of documentations for other developers to easily exploit the knowledge economy tools, the existing capabilities of the decentralized knowledge graph. And I'm personally most excited about the framework, which is going to allow other blockchain ecosystem builders to exploit capabilities of DKG, easily attach, contribute to the growth of decentralized knowledge graph, kind of the total graph size, which is already like kind of tremendously expanded. And we need to know this is a new project. No one has ever built or attempted to build what we already have nowadays. And this is when we see that other blockchain ecosystems like Matic, like Binance Chain, I don't know, I know that there are many Elastos fans also here, and essentially it does not stop here. We were going to first off support and give tools and rules to the EVM compatible blockchains, but in the future we don't need to stop here. So OriginTrail, in a sense, is going to become, if I use the analogy, Polkadot of data, or Polkadot of knowledge, structured knowledge. You don't necessarily stop on one chain, on kind of one network, but you actually kind of expand into limitless networks, and in that way expedite the growth.
Yeah, I have
Polkadot is definitely a better comparison than Ethereum. Definitely. All right. Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a pretty technical guy, and I still can't even fully get my head around the whole like NFT and knowledge token things. I'm a visual person too, so I look forward to seeing the first use case come out, because I think that's going to be that aha moment for me when I really can see it in action.
Yeah.
It's just one of the...
Just imagine right now, ownership is becoming super important. And NFTs are just one part of the story. They're allowing you to somehow make this ownership kind of, you can tokenize it and make it unique, non-fungible. I mean, you can also play with fungibility. You don't need to stay at the non-fungible angle. But what is more important is what Amos pointed out, I think, is the kind of longevity of what is the underlying asset. An underlying asset is typically the data, the knowledge that OriginTrail Decentralized Knowledge Graph maintains. And there is no other ecosystem, no other network that is capable of that. And once we roll this out, developers, existing applications will have the capacity to actually give kind of the data and the knowledge that is already contained within different applications, a longevity, structure, so that you can actually, as a developer, offer an application to the market that can be interoperable with other applications out there. And it can be like, I don't know, an application for registering ownership. It could be, supply chain cases that we have, read about and saw that there's a lot of interest for that. So perhaps it's difficult to understand because applications are kind of limitless, but once the developers will be able to prove and show what it is, we're going to just kind of have a sense of what it is capable of. But it does not stop there. It's vastly
well, something that jumps out at me, and I never even knew this was an issue, because in the United States it's not as big of a deal, but I found out this is a really big issue around the world, is like when you sell a car, for example, right? Knowing what happened to that car, like the history of the car. Like you might think you're getting a car that has done this, and the history behind it, it's really been in an accident and it's been sawed off in half and put together with another car. And so I think stuff like that would be a real beneficial use case for the ODN.
And again, only using blockchains, you're making things immutable. And the problem with blockchain systems, and this is something that we pointed out when we started developing OriginTrail a few years ago, blockchain and decentralized systems are still garbage in, garbage out. And if the data is not structured, if data is not interoperable, if data is not interconnected using knowledge graph logic, then you might as well be making shit immutable. And what OriginTrail actually does is it organizes the knowledge. So OriginTrail has a potential to become essentially kind of immutable Wikipedia of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like land registry, and I don't know. I just see it going so many other places that we haven't seen yet. But that's how I think of it.
Kind of instigate and encourage people to think around the OriginTrail, because what we have seen right now with the Trace Labs, and Yuri can be a living testament to that. We have so many projects, there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of meat on the table, and sooner than later, and it's better if we do it sooner, we need to give the tools and the frameworks out so that other developers can actually get a piece of pie, and the pie is growing. There is validation, and Trace Labs right now is blowing on full capacity, and we would like to do even more, but we somehow need to kind of equip other builders to seize all that potential that is absolutely there.
Makes sense.
I mean, I will say that I feel like it's gonna be a shining light in crypto to show. Right now, everyone knows NFTs, honestly, as the whole meme thing, the whole pump and dump scam, that whole nonsense, really and truly. But as I said, we see with Bitcoin, after you see the first useful implementation, all of a sudden you see everyone saying, oh my God, this is so amazing. Why weren't we doing this all along? So I think that OriginTrail, as soon as we start seeing these things come out and seeing how useful it is, we're going to see the true value of this and really get excited. But yeah, that's my piece.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Is there a deadline for TRAC token bounty claim for the staking occurred in February? I guess that's just an easy, quick one. But
yes, there is a deadline. Let me check the exact deadline. I believe it's in June sometime.
Okay.
So the smart contract has a set limit. I'll actually check while we're on the call.
All right, perfect. That was an easy one. Why can't they all be that easy? What the heck? Do you foresee a day when knowledge graph or user queried portions of it will be graphically displayed as a simple interactive interface, such as that a client user can essentially visualize identity relationships? And it's something I thought about before too. It'd be so cool if you can actually see a visual of the graph getting bigger, but I know that would take a ton of RAM and a ton of computing power probably to process all that data. Just today, actually, I just want to give a shout out. Someone in the community, Eye of the Beholder, he actually made this really cool visualizer that even shows jobs on the ODN as they come out, and it will show the different icons if it's an Ethereum job or an xDai job. So I thought that was really neat. It was really cool. But I mentioned that too because a lot of people are visual, right? So when you talk about these graph sizes, some people just get lost. What the heck is a TGS, Or you get people on that are like, well, show me the transaction so I know it's really being used. And you're like, well, there's a big graph size, but is there going to be a way that people are going to be able to really be able to see this more visual or understand the graph size more over time?
Yeah, I guess there's two angles to it. One is to look at from the perspective of all activity that's going on within the graph, and the other aspect is visualizing a particular, let's say, set of things that you're interested in. And this other is really what the developers are looking more for. So, for example, if you're building a use case in tracking that car that you mentioned and what's been going on with it, you're going to be asking specific questions in order to get a subset of the data in the graph, and then you would most likely want to visualize that. For development purposes, you want to visualize to check that everything is there, that certain connections are made right when you introduce data into the graph, and so on. So that's definitely, there's going to be tools around that as well. Some of them are going to be related to the underlying implementation. So, for example, they could reuse some of the existing tooling of the underlying database. When it comes to the visualization on the whole network level, that's a little bit of a different story because it's hard. It's hard to render like the ultimate universe graph. So, or impossible though. So I'm really interested to see what creative ideas people around the community have on how this can be done. But it's going to be huge. Think of trying to visualize all of the, let's say, web pages on the internet and
Right,
how they interrelate together. It's on one screen. I would love to see that though, because that would be, I can imagine that like looking like kind of like you do Google Maps or Google Earth. You can see the planet. You could maybe travel somehow through space. That would be awesome in 3D. But I think the going back to the serious part of the question is really, and what's the most important is how we help someone build something with this. This is the ultimate point of the tool, the whole tool, everything around the decentralized knowledge graph. So really helping someone build faster, introduce this technology easier to some already existing set of technologies that they're building, or build something totally new. There's definitely going to be visualization tools around that and help that manage a certain specific, let's say, industry or topic. Because the knowledge graph, what the knowledge graph really contains and what makes it different from a traditional database, one of the key, let's say, key elements are vocabularies and ontologies. And ontologies, these are, in short, they're ways to explain a certain domain. Like, for example, a domain of automotive domain would mean like that you would explain, let's say, terms like this. There exist things that are called cars, and there's also trucks, and they're a subset of something called vehicles. And then vehicles have owners, and these would be persons or companies, and basically that's an ontology. It explains concepts in a certain field. And then the knowledge graph can contain all of these ontologies together. When you match data and ontologies, you really get knowledge. That's what we're talking about this whole time around structure and making things verifiable. That's how you can have a machine understand, what you're really talking about, and not just have a link somewhere, like we already mentioned. And when it comes to these looking data in this way, it's more like observing it as a product rather than just some data somewhere in a link. And that's why tokenizing and creating knowledge tokens in that sense is really perfect for it, because in that way you no longer build application-centric data. Like every app you build, you create a database, you label it the way you think, because a lot of developers still do that, and that's normal. Systems have evolved like this. Like you want to create a website, you invent your database structure and so on. But when you're looking at industry, like car ownership is something that a car changes all kinds of owners and people handling it or businesses handling it. This really needs to be not application centric, but data centric, knowledge centric on that. And obviously then questions about who gets access to the data, how do we update the data, who at which point has the ability to update the data. That's where the knowledge tokens come into play very much. And that's something definitely worth visualizing in the sense of a lineage. This is what happened to the car. That person updated that. We've seen that event happen on such location. This door at the warehouse was changed, and so on and so on. You know.
I think I'm onto something with this car history stuff. I see you guys smirking about this, and it's always been something I thought about. So I don't know, it might be something there with that. But when you talk about knowledge, though, it's funny because it is hard to visualize the whole internet, right? You can't just say, "Hey, show me how the whole internet's being used." But maybe, for example, like one agrix, you buy some coconut whatever on it, and you can see that it's verified on the ODN. Well, there's also ingredients that were used in that, and then some of those ingredients might have been tracked on the ODN, and you can see a different application that shows that history of that tracking. So I get what you're saying. Is it's not like you can just say, here, show me the whole internet being used, but there's going to be these different platforms that show you the history of things or where they went, and then that is kind of your visual of that, so to speak. So.
Maybe just to add, you mentioned an interesting point here, and that's exactly what's happening, for example, with the whiskey, right? Tracking monastery. There's like a whole bunch of ingredients that come in, casks that are coming, from different sources. They have different properties. They've been filled with previously different liquids. And all of this is important and kind of adds to or amounts to the final product, which is the bottle of the whiskey that you're holding, right? And this product trail not only of the ingredients, but also of casks, of systems that it passed through, certificates, right? This trail, exactly, this is the ultimate goal of the of ODN, to provide that knowledge graph, and at the end of the day, that can be used for track and trace. Okay, that's the most clear and kind of obvious application. But if you really think of applications, any application, you can essentially build any application if you have the right data in the right form. And that's what OriginTrail, that's what decentralized knowledge graph is feeding applications the right data in the right form to the people who have access to it, essentially, if you want to look at it that way.
Well, and I think of the car thing, right? And again, I've learned so much being involved in OriginTrail over the last few years, the things I never thought I would understand or even care about. But like, I know like batteries for cars, for example, the cobalt, making sure that it's ethically sourced. And so you might look at a car and just think of like, okay, well, how is this car made? But literally, I mean, the battery that's in it alone has this whole process of making sure that it's ethically sourced, and so we may just see a car, but there's so many different parts of the graph that branch out as to where all those different pieces are. So, and I think that's the best way to explain it, really, right?
Yeah, and the value really grows not linearly, but exponentially as you attach more data to it, right? Because the value that you can derive out of knowing first layer components and then second level layer components or tier components, and then it really provides you with information and knowledge that you need to make much more let's say informed and better business decisions at the end of the day. And that's what we're trying to do, at least on the business for the enterprises that are using it and that will use it in the future.
Right. And speaking of, I'm going to the next question because this branches into this, but to your knowledge, does Google know that you're building a decentralized knowledge graph? And it's an interesting question, right? Because we always talk about, and we always say, well, Uber has their own that they developed, and Google, everything uses a knowledge graph, and Twitter uses a knowledge graph. Well, I can't imagine that these companies aren't privy to the idea that some small team out of Slovenia and Serbia is building this decentralized knowledge graph that could potentially disrupt the whole knowledge graph that they're used to today. So have you ever heard any whispers as to if Google, for example, was like, hey, what's this decentralized knowledge graph all about? Anything you can share there?
Actually, before you share, let me this ties into another question later on. So I'm going to tie them in together. Because we were going to talk about the knowledge graph conference. So with
it's a good
Facebook, Google, and all of them being there, by the way, the knowledge graph conference, they tweeted out OriginTrail is one of a kind, and they were so excited, and they removed that tweet. But of course, they couldn't show preference, I believe. That's why they did that. But they were very, very, very excited about OriginTrail.
They were excited.
Yeah. So like, what dynamics has been showing up there?
Yeah, perhaps just quickly, the idea for OriginTrail is to become knowledge graph of knowledge graphs, and the decentralized component makes that possible. Google is perhaps just one of the companies that has been utilizing the graph technology for years, but there are also other companies like Twitter and also other companies, best companies that are using knowledge graphs. And not sure that much about Google, but I'm sure they also read a lot about OriginTrail. And also, they're going to be able to hear Brana speak at the Knowledge Graph conference, which it's very refreshing to see how excited they are that they're also bringing decentralized knowledge graph builder to the conference. But when it comes, let's say, Twitter, we have like the first supporter of the Jack who invested in him. He's now supporting OriginTrail and also opening up doors for OriginTrail to be used by other applications to kind of create compounding effects. So big ones, I'm sure they're very much aware of the OriginTrail, and it's only going to increase awareness with the things that we're now doing.
Something you just said there too, because this actually goes to the next question. You guys do that so well sometimes. You just segue into the next question. But what can you tell us about Greg Kidd's role as an investor in the TRAC ecosystem? Is he simply a silent investor? Is there a strategic role there? So we saw him tweet out that basically he was giving his, when you put it on Twitter, it's official, right? It's like a relationship. You say, I'm in a relationship. It's official now. It's on Twitter.
It's not on Twitter. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen, right? Yeah, and he basically said, "Yeah, I'm behind these guys. I'm backing these guys." And we know he has his global ID project. So I just wanted to kind of put those two together. So what's his role in this investment, and what does an investment mean into OriginTrail or Trace Labs or whatever? And also, how does this tie into the whole global ID aspect?
Yeah, it's a part of a bigger picture, and I think in the next weeks, perhaps even next week, there are going to be announcements also connected to that. So OriginTrail is becoming part of a vaster ecosystem. It's called Global ID, and there are a lot of applications being built there. A lot of portfolio companies that also Global ID is supporting, Hardiaka is supporting. This is something that we can say kind of publicly because it's a public knowledge, but perhaps something that is not yet that much known and will be made more public in the following weeks is that it's not only the support for, let's say, Trace Labs, but actually support for the wider ecosystem, also including the token itself. And this is for the first time actually when in the recent months, OriginTrail is gaining strength in terms of these types of institutional supporters, which are bringing way more that we as a smaller team can actually achieve from Slovenia, Serbia. And I think we're doing pretty good, but having someone who's well embedded in the SF community and across the globe means a lot. Actually, what's interesting about Greg is also that he's very much excited about the region where OriginTrail was born, so kind of the central and southeastern Europe. And what's being done there is actually kind of creation of a very, very kind of strong consortia of different companies which are kind of cross-pollinating each other. So not building just one solution, one-off solution for a specific purpose, but actually connecting tools and in that way creating compounding effects. And Greg, of course, here is one of the crucial catalysts for that.
And I saw something online recently where it was about Greg Kidd just in general, and it was something like he already conquered the U.S. and now he's bored. He's looking to conquer the EU now. So I think he's gonna. It seems like he has a lot more interest over that side of that side of the river now.
I mean, if you look at the track record, whatever the group touched turned into not gold, diamonds.
Yeah, like that little thing Twitter and that little thing Coinbase. Yeah, I'd say they did all right for themselves.
It's I mean, we're very much proud to have such a support, and we're looking forward to what's gonna come out of this next.
Yeah, and I look forward to the global ID stuff because it just seemed like such a perfect case for the knowledge graph. So I mean, it'd be interesting to see where that goes.
And also look at the portfolio, and if you look at the wider ecosystem, there are kind of other exciting kind of alternatives to Ethereum, to existing blockchains that are being built through that support within that portfolio, and it's actually like it's very compatible to the roadmap, and that's why roadmap is designed in that way so that we can attach our tools to the existing other tools. And again, if you look at the blockchain kind of multi-chain approach, we feel that this part is going to help OriginTrail grow even faster. It's not going to be the matter of OriginTrail or the Trace Labs core team to kind of develop or to update. It's going to actually become a matter and a tool that anyone can use, of course, starting with the support from the portfolio that OriginTrail is also becoming part of.
Sorry, my dog's at the door.
There is one time though that satellite data was mentioned. We never really dove much deeper into that. I do believe this was in relation with BSI, but I'm stretching here. So
it was the data marketplace, I think.
Right?
Yeah, when we saw the data marketplace demos, there was like satellite data, and then
Right.
I don't know, I could be wrong.
So yeah, we're just wondering what's up with that. Is there like something that you guys can talk about?
Right now, things when it comes to applications, so the data marketplace are developing. Satellite imagery is kind of an ad hoc part because it can allow you to monitor things from afar, and then using other kind of data, you create ecosystems of different kind of data oracles, and using OriginTrail to capitalize that. And satellite part is very much important. Although right now the focus is very much on the decentralized, the future knowledge tools, because we need those in order to then not only structure and make data interoperable, but to monetize that. And once the knowledge tools are ripe enough, it's going to be much more apparent what's going on with the satellite imagery projects, with the next generation internet projects like NGI Atlantic, where currently the devices, Kakasi devices, are being deployed globally. And we look forward in the next 2 months or so to have the project results here. And we're going to be able to talk more and give more examples about that.
Well, yeah, I think everyone's pretty excited to know what's going on. Especially we see like all these new industries, all these new applications, all these new things coming out. I think we're just very excited to see what's going to happen in the future. But I will move on to this other question here. Now, this is a little bit of, I guess, an exciting question, or will rile up a bit of emotions in the community. But there was a little bit of questioning going around about the amount of jobs on xDai. And this question says, why jobs are so low, even on xDai? Is something being held back by a new system upgrade? Someone says here, my heart is in pain after 6 days. Yeah, he's wondering what's going on with xDai, pretty much.
Yeah, it's let me start. Essentially, the process of the upgrade is still ongoing. I think the release was it's very early in the sense of being only a few weeks old, and not all of the systems have fully migrated actually to the new versions. We know that some cases that were still that are still on version 4 of the network being updated now. So there's some part of that is about to hit the ODN in the coming weeks, I believe. We don't know exactly yet for every single one. There's also new things that are, like we already said, being worked on as we speak, and that are going to be part of the job market relatively soon. So implementations that some of them have been also added to the updated roadmap, if you've had a chance to look at it. So there's going to be additional things, and this being the first multi-chain network really of its kind. It's something that just takes a bit to start going. It's not it cannot be released today and all of a sudden have 1000x soon. But we do have already demonstrated and seen growth in the usage of the network. We expect that to grow according to the forecast that was published a couple of months ago. The TGS forecast is still here, and also there's things that we will be working on during this following period that are going to look at if there were to show any bottlenecks in terms of capacity, how we can increase that capacity so that the even bigger amount of incoming data holding offers and jobs can be handled by the network. We expect the knowledge tools to also significantly expand on this, so that, like we said, a lot of different developers, but not just developers, let's say regular users could also be using tools of the knowledge economy and contributing to it, also in terms of new jobs and things that are being published to the network. So yeah, I encourage everyone to look at the forecasts and yeah, just refer to the new roadmap. There's a lot of things there. Some things that we cannot share too much about, though, unfortunately. Wish we could, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
exciting.
It's something we've been talking about in the community. It's been a very hotly debated topic. You know, there's been a lot of sayings like, oh, we haven't seen high job counts, there's no adoption in OriginTrail. Well, we say that the xDai blockchain, it had a bug bounty for a reason. This is going live. We are literally working the kinks out. And as you just said, everything is still on target. So it's nice to hear it coming from you and that the community can actually hear that we are on target.
And
Yeah,
speaking,
we need to put things into perspective. We're years ahead of anyone. No one is tapping into the potential that OriginTrail is tapping into. So again, interoperability, interconnectivity, and integrity of the data, not just transactions. And we went a step further. We created multi-chain decentralized knowledge graph. And sometimes things need to be kind of improved. And we need to know that it's only been like a month since the launch of the multi-chain OriginTrail. And of course, there are certain bugs that you can only see when things are live. And thankfully, it's been, those bugs were kind of, they got rid of them in a very, very short time. And so there are no, at least not at this point, technical boundaries to quickly increase the number of jobs. And the jobs are increasing, of course, if you look into the statistics, things are moving. But again, we're moving at a very fast pace. We're building the technology that no one has ever built. We are in the uncharted territory. I would just say, we're doing good. We just need to kind of sometimes recognize that things sometimes need an update, and updates are happening, and it's great.
The Node company out of, I'll just real quick, I'll just plug this in here, he says, they tweeted 40 minutes ago, the OriginTrail Decentralized Network just surpassed 1,000 jobs on xDai chain within 26 days of launch. 1,000, that's 1/5 of the entire year of last year. Okay, guys.
We've been things like FUD about many things, but when it comes to saying that OriginTrail is not growing, OriginTrail doesn't have partners, no one is using OriginTrail, that's it's funny because there is objectively, you can see what's happening on the network. You can even see others talking about OriginTrail, adopting OriginTrail. So when the use of OriginTrail is happening, it's not us reporting about it, it's the partners. You can go to partners' website, the most reputable 100-year-old companies are using it, putting OriginTrail on their website, and all those stupid motherfuckers saying that we don't have partnerships, we don't have jobs. I think they should get a one-way ticket to the nut house.
And one thing also to add to this is that sometimes we forget that we are working with kind of established enterprises, and when you're talking about production deployments into production systems, these things, even at the fastest of paces, right? Just like even if you have a completely packaged solution, before all of this goes through IT boards, architecture review boards, business process approvals, all of these things is just, it takes time, yeah? And say the larger the enterprise is, the more of these processes you have to the more of these hoops you have to jump through. And a lot of things we have, been working in the background to actually, that will probably be now visible also in the next months, is actually getting these things through so that production use systems, not pilots, not proof of concepts, production systems that are used for an entire segment of a business's operation will be deployed. And I think sometimes people underestimate this, the amount of effort that it takes not to build a solution, but to get it through all of these approvals that you can then deploy it. And I think that's if you're not in the enterprise world, that is very difficult sometimes to see. So just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting right now with the going into new sectors. So you were able to read what's happening in the roadmap, but there is much more to it. But if you just focus on the things that are right now in the roadmap, the projects that are now gaining fruition within the healthcare sector, they're covering like majority of the countries in development. So the supply chains of healthcare there, and this is enormous. There is no benchmark in a comparable industry we're in. By which we could say, so this is similar to that achievement. This is it surpasses everything. And again, it's others talking about this. It's not us. So the proof is there. And I can't wait things to get out as news. And I feel next week we're gonna see some very exciting news, and going forward, definitely. And what's interesting also to point out here is that there are projects that Trace Labs, as Yuri described, is in charge of. But there's also another development within Trace Alliance, which has now gained another working group called supply chains data interoperability and semantic web. And next week, most probably next week, we're going to see another announcement through which is going to become clear which research institutions are now discovering how to use the OriginTrail. And following that, there's going to be other announcement which service providers, which companies are additionally joining that working group to come up with a framework how to utilize OriginTrail as a backbone for supply chain data interoperability and the semantic web. So essentially creating a Wikipedia for supply chains, but way better.
Well, I'm excited for next week now.
Agreed.
Right now, I can't sleep. Thanks, jerk. I'm actually gonna. So kind of this goes back to what we were just talking about somewhat, but I'm not gonna read the whole question. But somebody was talking about what about integrating with Binance Smart Chain? We saw it. We talked about in the roadmap. You had Matic in there, Air Protocol, just as some example, Binance Smart Chain. So if you were to connect something like a Binance Smart Chain, would there be an opportunity for usage for it too? I mean, you don't want to just do something for the sake of doing it, right? Also, but do you see that like there's a case where all these chains, no matter what, can be utilized and leveraged by all the different users of the ODN in some way?
Yeah, it's really about the focus of how can you allow other ecosystems, other communities to take advantage of the decentralized knowledge graph. And by what we've been able to achieve with xDai already, and the level of kind of generalizing this attachment of a blockchain to the DKG that was achieved, we came to a point where we in the coming months can enable that any type of EVM blockchain is able to attach to the decentralized knowledge graph, thus getting access to the entire all the value propositions of the knowledge graph. And that's the point, right? So you're not obviously doing some sort of an integration just for integration's sake. It's about having that integration be a driving force to expand the usage of the knowledge graph and to expand the potential impact of the knowledge graph, so that you have kind of those users of different blockchain ecosystems be able to very seamlessly then also use DKG in whatever they're building on those respective networks, or what they're looking to create or bring to the world. So looking at Binance Chain, it's following the same logic. It is able to make use of the DKG using the Binance Chain, obviously then also as if there is a sizable community to see that's beneficial and to make that happen, also bring then a part of Trace to that particular blockchain ecosystem and run anything that's kind of available within that ecosystem through that same using the same logic. So it's like growing the knowledge graph's impact by having multiple different blockchains being able to tap in, even as independently as possible. Yeah,
eminently benefiting from other chains. So we're not instructing that specific chain should be used. So we need to be clear here that we're opening the doors and we're giving tools for others to deploy that. And of course, we're going to kind of be encouraging and also helping with that. But the choice is very much free. And Binance Chain, as an example, might serve as a good perhaps starting point, or perhaps something that we might add later down the line. But as an example of something which might even help expand the total market potential, or at least the current market potential for the Trace token, is definitely somewhat connected to the Binance Chain, because as we've seen with the Ethereum world, Uniswap has created tremendous opportunities for decentralized projects. But now we see that there are also other chains which are kind of offering similar or even more appealing capabilities. But of course, we're treading carefully here. And at the same time, we would like to kind of seize those opportunities where Trace token would be exposed to other promising ecosystems.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up the opportunities of things you guys don't even know could be an opportunity, because this space is changing so fast. So who the heck knows? I mean, the pancakes or whatever.
I mean, honestly, a year ago, when we added Uniswap into the roadmap, it was a kind of a gut feeling. We didn't know things are going to kind of expand and grow that quickly in that ecosystem.
Oh, I
and
knew.
we're expecting serendipity with other blockchain ecosystems.
Awesome.
Do you want me to grab this one?
Yeah, can I put my own question in for a second? I like doing that sometimes, so I'm gonna throw that in. And this is just me, just kind of creating a little hype, and which I don't often do. So when we talk about the parachains with Polkadot, right? We saw stuff in the roadmap. It was just a one little line item that said basically developing a plan for a parachain slot, exploring the auctions. So how do you envision something like that would go, right? Would we look towards like a crowdfunding type solution? Would we look towards institutional VCs maybe wanting to get in on the pie there? Because obviously we know that the ODN is beneficial for the whole Polkadot ecosystem. I'm actually a little surprised myself that it's not even on that tier of what does Polkadot call those? The free ones they give out for the better good of the ecosystem, parachains or something like that, you know? But what do you see that process looking like? And so now we do know it looks like a parachain, but when are we going to hear more about it and about the auctions, and what's in your head? What do you see that happening with that?
So we put that into the roadmap for Q3, but I mean, there's a lot of things going on in discussions with Polkadot and in discussions with their wider ecosystem, institutional support. There's also exchanges. And this is something that needs to be figured out through those consultations that we are already having. And of course, Substrate Builders program is an important part of it, because we are very much proponents of building the things and then proving the things. And once things are here, that we can actually be sure that things are working, that they can benefit OriginTrail ecosystem, such as the substrate-based chain, then either the crowdfunding or crowd loaning mechanism can be initiated and push OriginTrail towards the parachain. But we need to be sure that the technology is perfected. And as we have seen, Polkadot is promising a lot. It's an amazing project. That said, we need to follow their development, and it's very encouraging that the third version of the substrate is out, and that is already underpinning the OriginTrail's blockchain. In 2 weeks, or even in a shorter time frame, we're going to see the testnet. So once we have that out, it's going to be tremendously easier for us to assess what type of trajectory we shall pursue when it comes to parachains. We expect a lot of exciting things there, but sometimes we have a problem that there are a lot of exciting things and we cannot, always just talk about the Polkadot, but Polkadot is very much alive. Rana, please jump in. A lot of things. We are very much occupied by the work connected to the Polkadot and to Starfleet chain.
Yeah, it's basically one of the things that was a highlight for me for the past, let's say 6 months or a little more, is exactly these collaborations with teams such as the Parity team or xDai team, where we also had great collaboration, and now Global ID team as well. So we're working directly, technical teams together on creating integrations, how these technologies work, creating the Starfleet blockchain, the bridges, the whole ecosystem around it, and it's hard, but it's a problem. It would be hard to do anything else now, to be honest. How exciting it is, because building things such as distributed network systems, blockchains it's amazing. It's you have to plan a lot of cool things ahead. And like Žiga said, one of the things that we are having coming up is the Starfleet testnet launch, which is imminent. We are doing the final preps for that. So the preparations are along the lines of update mechanisms, governance of the testnet in terms of when you want to update the blockchain runtime, like a fork that you've seen the other day happened on Ethereum, Berlin fork, right? And a substrate-based chains that works a bit differently. So there's no fork mechanism. There's actually a runtime update that the network votes on. And all of these things are relatively new. So we're incorporating them into the chain, and then we'll be testing them soon. And essentially this work with them together is, I think we have we don't have meetings every day, but we have a lot of things that we work on together every day. We communicate together through channels, and it's exciting. It's great. Building this chain for Polkadot is let's say a track of its own, because it requires certain direction of the technology in order to be able to plug it in as a parachain later into the relay chain of Polkadot, and that requires a lot of preparation. But yeah, we're super excited for that, and I'm excited to share more as soon as we have it.
Yeah, I know you're a nerd and a geek like me, so I'm sure like getting that part of it must be super cool and fun to be dabbling in and see where that goes too, because that's going to be a huge other milestone for the ODN, which is going to be awesome. Amos.
Yeah, I think I'm going to tackle this one here.
Yeah.
So as we all know, the Ivan on Tech course has gone live. Some community members, however, have been reaching out to me to pass me money under the table to get the course. So so one thing that is happening pretty much is these newer folks, well, community members that have been here all along, they want access, but they've been priced out of the Ivan and Tech, access to the course there. So is there anything that's being worked on? I guess they want me to ask,
Sure.
How can they get, access to these materials, the 101 course especially?
Definitely, we're going to be looking into ways how to make everything more. This is just the beginning, and you know, Amos, that the progress towards an all-encompassing set of courses is kind of there are several batches of courses that are going to come out, and once we have everything covered, everything completed, we're also going to estimate how we can take those courses also to the other platforms, potentially even create a platform of our own through the Trace Alliance and have resources there even more easily accessible. But it's a process, yet definitely at the end of the road, we're going to make things more and more accessible. So this is just a beginning. And along with the Evangelist program, the courses that you're creating are going to become a centerpiece for developers, for other community members to educate themselves on the OriginTrail, and then ideally build business initiate
on the farm.
Yeah, sorry, am I?
You're cutting off a little bit.
Was cut. Sorry.
You're back.
The long story short, the Evangelist program is also entailing giving developers access to both courses and additional tools. And once we get there, then it's going to be more accessible.
All right. I guess we can just move into the other question, because that's pretty much self-explanatory at this point. Since the launch of xDai, we just said 1,000 jobs since then, which is, in my opinion, pretty amazing. Has there been an increase in demand? This is a question that's been asked. Has there been an increase in demand since the launch of xDai, seeing that the network is totally unlocked and now all these enterprises can really start like playing around a little bit? What have you guys seen, heard, anything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with any product, the first early majority or the early adopters of any new product are those who are willing to pay more in order to gain access to the newest, shiniest products. And OriginTrail was in that phase last year, also in the beginning of this year, since up until the xDai enabled OriginTrail was launched, so the multi-chain. Now, of course, with the vastly improved efficiency, with things becoming more kind of affordable, we are kind of going into a phase where we're seeing economies of scale, and that means that companies, the new companies plus the companies already using OriginTrail, now using it for more use cases, and this is being made possible by more affordable knowledge exchange. And what we're seeing right now is, yes, extra companies expressing interest, plus the existing companies expanding the breadth of the projects, and we're going to be seeing more activity on the network as a result of that. So efficiency gains, economies of scale, and then in a not that distant future, we're also going to see economies of scope, meaning that the companies are going to attach more diverse use cases as a result of this expanded or improved properties of the OriginTrail network as a result of the multi-chain trajectory.
And I think it shows also on the entire roadmap that was out. So the entire project of Ortega really shows that there's a insane influx of interest, as well as possibility and capability of what you can do with the optimized technology and the new things that are coming out. So it's really kind of the focus is how can we make sure that this excitement can be served with as many different methods as possible, if you will. So that's a lot of the activities that we have mentioned in the roadmap are addressing that exact thing, which is that there is a very kind of significant increase in this type of enterprise and adoption and utilization of the graph of the DKG.
Now that's interesting because I mean, obviously everybody keeps looking at, oh, when's the next big partnership? When's the next big name drop or whatever? But actually the expanding of the network, the unlocking of the network, truly, we already have some massive partners that can now do like even more insane things.
Yeah.
So like,
I mean, it's just like it's I'd say even an order of magnitude, like change in what you can offer, in what you can do, in what people can envision, and what the concepts or the products or the solutions that they can come up with, and how to really kind of use the OTDKG. So it's like now it's really the very exciting times of how can we get this, and how can we somehow honor and even increase or bring in more stakeholders that can jump on this demand.
So OriginTrail community, are you listening? It's expansion time, guys. That's what we're hearing here. All right, you know what? Speaking of expansion, do you want to kick the next one off, or you want me to take it away?
Yeah, go nuts, man.
All right.
I'm trying to take a picture of us right now for the Wizzy on Twitter, so he can.
Oh yeah, he's gonna love it. We gotta get the wizard involved.
I don't know how to do it. Point. So you
got it.
I'm gonna try right now. Hold on. Ready? That one was bad. Right. Keep going. Just go.
All right. So yes, in this same vein of expansion, we're talking about, we saw BSI getting a little bit excited. We start seeing things like trusted bytes. We know we don't want to leak or say anything crazy. So trusted bytes, what's going on there, as well as, if we can, ever so kindly and ever so gently and ever with such grace, talk about the healthcare solution being built with BSI, if you can, please. Thank you.
Yura, do you want to walk the thin line?
Sure, sure. Let me start with the.
Let me ask my legal counsel.
Let me start with the second question, then, rather with I think when we're talking about the healthcare, life sciences, and healthcare industry, actually, we have a couple of things that we're working on there with BSI that are in different stages of maturity, and the most exciting one that is, I mean, it's most exciting because it's closest to being mature at the moment, is something that we'll hopefully be able to talk in the next month about, and not only talk but also to show. And it is about I know most of the things I've tried to also convey in the blog post that put together last week on how different things that we're looking at interact with the OriginTrail knowledge graph and where the value is. And when we're talking, especially when we're talking about traceability here, right? And this goes to any pharmaceutical drug, really. It's all the same principle, be it vaccine, be it donated products, be it something completely else, anything that needs to be done, anything that needs to be traced on a lot or a unit level is where OriginTrail really plays an important, or can play a very important and value-added role. And in that sense, that part hasn't really been cracked yet, right? And we think we're pretty close to cracking it in that sense, to enable unit level traceability, because if you really look at the landscape of players in a typical pharmaceutical supply chain and how these things would interact, which data needs to be exchanged, it's really it's a super cool use case for OriginTrail Decentralized Knowledge Graph. And it's also very opportune because pharmaceutical industry in itself is already very standardized based on GS1. Right, so every product needs to have a serialized serial number. It needs to have a serial number on it. There are, data matrix codes on each and every product that you can use to scan to get information about it. So the industry, from a data standards, how products are marked and how packaging is marked is kind of very ripe to be kind of included on the OriginTrail decentralized knowledge graph, and that's where the exciting piece comes. Now you can do all sorts of things with this, right? From tracking and tracing to knowing where you have products that have been stolen, diverted, ended up in a market that they were not intended for. Building systems that would enable you to, for example, burn a certain serial number because it's been stolen. So when somebody tries to administer it or verify it, they would get a red flag saying, "Oh, I'm using a stolen product." And then building systems around this that enable not only safety of the people actually consuming the end product, but actually also enabling governments, the government agencies, and also the authorities actually to close in on these things and identify where are drugs being counterfeit. Okay, we're seeing them here and here and here. Kind of building actions on top of these things. So now I kind of gone into many different directions. Hopefully in the next month we'll be able to communicate a very kind of precise thing about this solution that is the most mature, and it's not that far away. BSI is excited, we're excited. So that's kind of covering the pharmaceutical healthcare sector. The other point of the question, the trusted bytes, is a bit of a trickier one to answer. So, and not because of the overall involvement, we're very much involved. We're working with BSI closely on this thing. But it's the whole consortium, and everything has a very specific plan and way of communicating. They have a very specific stakeholder landscape that needs to be maneuvered very, very carefully. And in the next months, there will be more on this coming out, specifically also on the details and everything. For now, not much can be said or divulged in terms of detail, but I can say I've spent a lot of time on it. I can say that. So definitely, we are working at it. It's a very exciting project as well. I mean, you guys have read in the press release what it's about, most likely, right? So you know what's going on. It's really about enabling essentially post UK, on the highest of levels, right? Enabling or facilitating post UK border crossings, safe border crossings, right? And that's just, I think, as far as I can go at this point in time.
Man,
unfortunately,
we need Yuri more often. I think gigabombs soon are going to turn to Yuri bombs during these. I don't know. It might get dethroned soon.
We just got to keep pushing.
Yeah, hopefully I don't get ruler over my fingers for that one, but
can't slip.
I mean,
no,
even on the topic of unit level tracing, though, this is massive, and I feel like the OriginTrail community, we know what OriginTrail does, we're excited, but we don't research enough to really understand the significance of what's taking place here. The unit level tracing is, if not the key pain point of the DSCSA, the requirements. In fact, I find it shocking that in fact, has the US FDA shown any interest or contact? Well, I guess you can't even say that, but it seems like something that they would be significantly interested in, because this is pretty much all the rant and rave that they've been talking about for so long. Even throughout my personal research, if you guys have been watching my YouTube channel, I've been talking about this nonstop. So
yeah. Going on what Amos is saying, because it seemed like one of the pain points, especially with something like the DSCC, or you know what I'm saying?
DSCSA.
It's like, it's one thing tracking a pallet, but you really need to get down to those like individual boxes of those vaccines, for example. I'm just using vaccines as an example. I'm not saying vaccines on the ODN, but it seems like now, like, and we saw this with xDai, because it's so cheap to process those transactions. With Starfleet coming, you can get down to those those smaller batches, which does make this more advantageous to use for these types of systems, because we can get down to the QR code in a box rather than just the pallet that got shipped out or something.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a very kind of interesting problem in a sense. There's a lot of data involved, obviously, right? Because how pharmaceuticals usually come packed in various levels of product packaging. Some of them are even on a pallet level, and then you have cases. Cases contain packages. Packs contains inner packs, and inner packs contain some individual units, right? And each and every unit is serialized, has its own lot number has, it's a lot of data points that needs to be put into perspective for you to be able to understand what's going on. And well, that's where the knowledge graph is kind of designed to do this. And especially when things started moving across one layer of a supply chain to the endpoint of dispense, then you really can kind of start thinking about this is exactly what the decentralized knowledge graph was built to do. It's the kind of the solution for this from a technical perspective, and hopefully now that we will be able to demonstrate these things in the next month or two, it becomes easier to also kind of not sell this story, but show this story, right? So here you go. This is how it works.
We actually had a call this week with the largest food and drug authority, one of the largest in the world. And what's interesting is they're asking how quickly data can be queried using OriginTrail network. And as you see, it can be queried across, I mean, let's say that you're reading data from blockchains or that you're reading data from supply chain data sources. This can be done all the way to the unit level in a matter of minutes, perhaps even quicker. And when they told us what others can do, it was about hours, sometimes days. So OriginTrail is vastly more capable to query data in complex supply chains because of its kind of unique technological background in these, which allow you to give supply chains the tools to connect the existing data sources, even to connect existing blockchain ecosystems and retrieve data structured in a much faster manner. And we're hoping to see more developments in that direction. So kind of to take the
you broke up a little bit, so I wasn't sure. I'm sorry. You said the other entities were able to do this in hours, and OriginTrail was able to do this in seconds.
It takes much more time. Yeah, it takes hours, sometimes days, sometimes even weeks. But the crucial problem here being that when they're tracing, they're most likely tracing within within vertically integrated supply chain. One company, one brand, of course, they're able to somehow predict what's going on in their house. But what OriginTrail is offering is how to trace and how to retrieve data from more complex supply chains, going beyond just one step back, one step forward across multiple organizations. And this is a game changer.
And you bring up something that got me thinking, because we always hear about data creator nodes and data holder nodes. And if you, in all the documentation that's been out for OriginTrail in the last 3 years, you always see this mention of a data viewer node. And I've never really asked about it, and I never really thought about it. And this might be more of a Branimir question, but and we talk about being the Google for supply chains. So is a data viewer node, is that a thing where like, hey, I got to trace back everything and I can do a search of the ODN and I can pull this data back? I mean, we've never really asked about the data viewer node because it's never been the sexy part to us, but it sounds like this could be the sexy part because this is the part that these big, large organizations or government entities or whatever want to use, right? So can you go a little bit just into what a data viewer node is? I'm sorry if this is not related or it is, but.
Before Brana, perhaps if you want to see a high-level example of that, I think the scan association using OriginTrail is very much kind of going into that direction, where the governments are being able to look into the certain critical data. Just kind of a high-level, more simplistic view, but then Brana, you can provide a more complex vision of how this is being done.
Yeah, it's essential to the ecosystem. Nobody, if nobody's viewing the data, why is it there?
Why is it there?
So when you mention the data viewer node, that's really the node that is requesting a certain data from the network, and that is kind of like you searching on Google. You need something, you go. But I mean, maybe we do the Google example a bit too much. It's not just about doing some sort of search. It's literally whenever, like for example, Žiga mentioned scan or any other different type of application really queries the network. It searches something on the network, but what it does, it essentially enables a certain view into the data for whoever's viewing it. For example, the US government, if they're working with scan and looking into the data, they see the data points in the way they understand it through a visual interface that they understand. They can verify all of this data and connect it all together in in one simple interface. They don't necessarily see the graph underneath. They don't see a lot of things, but they do have an interface that allows them to dive deeper, to go into the blockchain transaction, to go and fetch the actual raw data in a JSON format, for example. And that's where the part of the developers comes in, because somebody needs to build these interfaces, right? Somebody needs to create those decentralized applications, or really knowledge applications, to see into the actual case and look into the data that's on the ODN, or that the ODN refers to. Because as you can look at the updated roadmap, you will see that there will be data that ODN will allow you to query that is not necessarily part of the ODN right now. So for example, blockchain data from other blockchains, things that you can query from, for example, a smart contract like Uniswap. You could query like the last 50 things that happen in the contract, the events, and so on. So not to go too technical, the point there being is that it's all about viewing some sort of data, and when you want to view it, you need to have some sort of structure. Ideally, you take standards for that. And I wanted to actually tie that into one of the questions that somebody mentioned that the knowledge graph is disrupting things and how disruptive it is. I would argue it's not disrupting. It's actually expanding. It's about connecting different things and not switching them apart. Just changing whatever a company is using, and then take this knowledge graph is going to solve all your problems. No, use whatever you're using that's doing a good job for you right now, and extend its capabilities with knowledge graphs. Make sure to turn your knowledge and your data into an asset. And for that, you have this set of tools that you can use, and you can then track vaccines or cars or whatever, you name it, across this whole landscape of different solutions that you do not disrupt, but you extend. And then you view it as a data viewer in the end, right? You view something of it. You're interested in some kind of verification, or just some information that you're looking for. Like, for example, you're looking for something happening on Uniswap. It doesn't have to be a supply chain related information per se.
Interest. I don't know if Asa, I know you had a question. Did you want to?
Oh, sorry. My wife just called asking me if I wanted a coffee. So I apologize. But yeah, no. Yeah, and that was me earlier who mentioned that. And I didn't mean it from a disruption standpoint necessarily. I meant it like, well, again, if you remember the video I put out a year and a half ago now, remember the big thing I always stressed is the IBMs of the world can't create this. The Googles of the world can't create this. And there's a reason for that, because they're exactly the reason why we need this is because we can't have these single entities that are controlling this network. And I meant it more as in like, I'm very curious to see if like the Googles of the world are like, why aren't we dabbling in this, and then not realizing that they can't. I want to see that moment. Like I want to be at the table when they realize that they can't, because they're the first thing that the C-level is, how do we make money on this? We can do this. How come we're not doing this? And it's like, because you can't, and that's more what I meant when I'm talking about the disruption factor. So, but yeah, no, I mean, even just getting down to the ability that it's going to have, like, as a data viewer sitting there and say, oh, there was a recall because this vaccine is causing blood clots. Well, it was only made in this one facility. Now this data viewer, whoever it is, this big organization, can get on that data viewer node, Google, or they can call it OriginTrail search and say, oh, well, we know it came from this batch in this place or whatever, and they can quickly get that information. And because there's a misconception in the community, when people go to the Explorer on the website, they're like, well, it's slow when I search for something. And I'm like, well, I mean, you got to remember, there's a lot of factors involved here. That's just a web front end for like a simple web front end for just looking up basic data sets. But these tools like OneAgrix is using, or BSI, or whatever, like they're a lot more fluid, and they're a lot quicker, and they do it a little more sexy than you're getting on the Explorer, right? Is that safe to say? Yeah,
it's part of the implementation. It depends on how the indexing is done, but that's not to say that a big network can ever be queried as, like it's in your local hard drive. There's over 700 nodes on the network that all of them contain some data. As you know, that not all of them contain all of the data. So therefore, this trade-off that we get scale for in terms of, let's say, related to blockchain, where every node keeps all the data, and that therefore blockchain becomes a bottleneck, a cool bottleneck per se, but no, it's never going to scale as the blockchain we see it today as decentralized, fully replicated. That's why Ethereum is going with sharding. That's why Polkadot is implementing a multi-chain network. That are the only possible strategies for scaling. Well, ODN doesn't have that issue. The other problem though there is that you introduce some latency in search, but there's also a lot of things there to be improved, things that we have in the roadmap as well. So you will see if you look a little deeper, there's going to be things that are going to be improving on the indexing as well as on the querying. So look at RDF and Sparkle as the standards that are going to be the ones used, particularly Sparkle because it allows something called federated querying. So if you run a query and you don't care how many different nodes answer to you, you get one federated response in the end because Sparkle has a standard for that, and that's going to be very powerful. But it's never going to be like 30 milliseconds of a response, right. And that's why the others can claim talk about hours and days. And currently ODN is in minutes. Like the Explorer is not going to last for 3 hours for a query. It's going to be a couple of minutes, but it's not like you're searching on Google and it returns the result in 26 milliseconds because it's in a centralized server.
Yeah, and if you listen to even Frank Giannis talk in like some of his videos when they did that mango tracing or whatever, like he's like even that lettuce thing, I'm not even sure they still to this day can tell us where the E. coli came in the lettuce, the big lettuce scandal or whatever. But and he says like when he put those mangoes on the table and told his people at Walmart and said trace these back, it took them 2 weeks or something crazy. Yeah. Like yep. So just even if it takes you an hour or a half hour or 10, I mean this is orders of magnitude better than what's out there today. And right. The fact that you can pull those data from all those individual systems is orders of magnitude more is better.
Flexible than anything out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so important to highlight this because people really don't get what OriginTrail is bringing. It's light years ahead of anything today.
We had a very interesting call yesterday with John J. Kyo, who's now leading the efforts within the working group for interoperability and semantic web. And he made a very, very interesting point saying that supply chains are kind of the way we consider them is a thing of the past. We should think about supply chains as ecosystems. And they are. And there are a lot of kind of quote unquote promising solutions, which we deem as kind of silver bullets, different like very capable technologies, but we consider them in a compartmentalized way. And this is why supply chains are so difficult to manage because there are a lot of high tech, but everything is scattered, non-interoperable, etc. And what OriginTrail is doing here, it is instilling ecosystem thinking, so that things that let's say happen with the ship in the Suez Canal would not happen again. And we need to consider that catastrophic event for supply chains, for global supply chains, as a result of this old thinking about supply chains, whereby, yes, we have the best possible technologies on the ships. So the ship was operated by the local crew. So they had all the knowledge. They had all the most modern equipment. The ship was new. So everything was state of the art, beyond state of the art. But the problem is there was a certain systems thinking, which was very much compartmentalized and not taking into consideration that there is no interoperability with all that fancy equipment, and this is why the catastrophic scenario unfolded. A lot of very fancy stuff, but they couldn't envision something very, very simple because they were blind, but very perfect in every aspect of a particular system they have. So more ecosystem thinking is something OriginTrail is instilling, and through the Trace Alliance right now, it's going to be interesting to see the first deliverable, which is going to be the landscape of interoperability initiatives. And then next deliverable is going to be a comprehensive framework, also entailing OriginTrail as a backbone for interoperability and semantic web in supply chains. But everything is going to be based on the ecosystem thinking, not in that old kind of old-fashioned way of considering supply chains as something like a system by system manner, if that makes sense.
You know, as this project continues to grow and progress, I find it hard to think of an industry that won't be affected by OriginTrail. I mean, if you have data, OriginTrail is going to affect you in some way. If you have data, and to see what you're trying to build and implement, I can just see how attractive this is to enterprise as well. The value, the immense savings, cost benefits, manufacturing time, it just revolutionizes everything we do at every level of society. Yeah, pretty amazing. Now, Ace, I didn't know if you wanted to grab the next question, but I wanted to dive into this one here. It's a little bit, we're running close on time a little bit. So I just wanted to squeeze this one in here really quick because it's a little bit confused. Not a lot of people know how exactly or who's benefiting from the Polkadot integration. Now, we know a lot of people today in crypto, they'd be like, oh, we're going to host our servers on Amazon AWS, and then we're going to put that AWS stick on our website and say we have partnered with Amazon. So, you know, people, I think how to ask this question is, who's benefiting? Is this a mutually beneficial sort of exchange of knowledge and technical resources between Polkadot and OriginTrail? Or is this more also OriginTrail just leveraging the Polkadot ecosystem and of course, bringing whatever value we can bring, but not necessarily, you know, as mutually beneficial?
It's a compounding effect, right? So Polkadot is benefiting as much as we are, and it's not kind of mutually exclusive. It's a new way of thinking about the ecosystems, other companies within this landscape as not competitors, but rather someone with whom you partner and then leverage the existing technologies instead of developing something that already exists in the market. In that way, you create compounding effects much quickly. And it's, of course, it's mutual. It's mutual. Polkadot is recognizing it. I think Polkadot ecosystem is doing pretty well along with their main unit, Web3 Foundation. I think this is what they're called. And we're very happy to be selected by the Polkadot community, also, of course, with the help of OriginTrail, to present. And this is also going to be a chance where we are going to be able to articulate better how Polkadot is benefiting and how OriginTrail is benefiting at the Decoded event, I think sometimes in May. And it's very exciting because two of the presentations got selected, both that we presented. And then it's going to be very, very exciting to kind of tell not only to you guys within our own ecosystem, but also to a vaster, bigger ecosystem within Polkadot, what OriginTrail is bringing to the table.
Okay, that is very clear. I don't think there's going to be any misconceptions after that.
And we had a few questions, but they all kind of got answered, like on the rest of them. So what I want to end it with is somebody put this in, and I love these end questions. Are there some topics that we didn't highlight that are important to you or you'd like to elaborate on? Because I know sometimes like you're at the mercy of what we ask for questions, but is there anything you want to add or coming up or you know, FYI or anything along those lines?
I think it's so we were, I think I really like the discussion over the course of the last 15-20 minutes. You know, you were hearing from Jure like the requirements from the enterprise size, and we were talking in the beginning as well as to, you know, what's have we seen an increase after the xDai? And right now I think you can imagine what type of a jump we've achieved in being able to address the needs by having reached this phase that we are right now, which maybe we couldn't have 6 months ago. And all the things that we were talking, you know, stand and behold, they are bringing activity to the network. They're bringing jobs. They're bringing data coming to the knowledge graph, and they're bringing that TGS growth that we're looking at as one of the key targets. So it's seeing that increase in capability of what we can deliver as an ecosystem now to the global supply chains or to the global needs basically that exist today is only the starting point, right? So the entire roadmap has been retailored to fit, to be really well adjusted to these increased needs and increased understanding how this technology can be put in practice. And it now really can scale, and it now can really answer all this pending kind of demand that's there. and it does show already, and it will show much more even in the future as this come. And we're really excited to see how we can extend this from Trace Labs team, which is like Žiga said, very much booked up, very much under the pressure of getting this demand coming in, by having these tools and rules, getting through all these different Project Ortega things that have been set up, as well as the technical developments, which will further increase capabilities and new features and new functionalities, how all of these things will come together to show even more powerful kind of ways of utilizing the decentralized knowledge graph. And so for my side is, a lot of times I think we have a little bit of a privy to have a better sense of just how certain things how impactful they can be. And through this conversation, I felt that we managed to pull through at least a fair amount or a glimpse in how does that really work, kind of on a very concrete level, and how important are all these developments that we've done in Q1, and how these are actually inputs into what Q2, Q3, and Q4 are going to look like, and why these really make sense. And if we as a community also have this kind of understanding, I think now is really the best chance also for so much more people and stakeholders to get involved, due to all these activities that will take place and all these programs that will run. And I'm really, really excited about all of these things in concert. So I wouldn't really single out any of those, but just having that really kind of breaking of the dam moment happen is I mean, the future is now, guys. This is what we've been looking for.
And I don't know. Oh, sorry, go Žiga.
Sense of proportion here, because both of you guys and the vast majority of community is here and can actually understand what's been achieved in the last years, or at least in the last quarter. And we've achieved so much. I mean, since we had our last AMA, we have launched multi-chain decentralized knowledge graph, which is showing a lot already after just one single month. And now imagine the roadmap is set in a way that we can actually achieve way more that we have achieved so far with the current roadmap in the last few months and in previous years. And just imagine if we're only achieving what we have achieved so far, but it's not only going to be this, but still, it would be a tremendous kind of achievement if we just replicated the effort. But it's going to be way more impressive than it has been so far. But that said, I'm still very much impressed to what has been achieved, not only by the Trace Labs team. So it's very much important to single out a few individuals, including the two of you, all the rest of the guys that are also part of the tokenomics and decentralization working group. We wouldn't have done it without you, because you also helped us understand certain things that we did better, certain things that we did faster, certain things where we increased ambitions. So admitting more kind of potential into the OriginTrail ecosystem through the staking process. And I'm personally very much looking forward to the completion of the second quarter and the next AMA. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about when we create this delta between today and the next AMA.
Will be awesome. And with listening to Tomaž just speak, and me, I love my analogies like digital toilet paper, but I don't know if any of you guys ever watched this show called Gold Rush, but basically it's the whole show is like, I swear half the season is them trying to set up the equipment to start mining gold, right? So they're bringing in the trommel, they're bringing in the excavators, they're showing their trip to get there, they're putting it together, there's issues, they're fixing it, but at the end they start mining all this gold, right? And so and it really pays out in the end. And I kind of think of it that way, right? You have these these speed bumps you hit, you're integrated with xDai, or maybe you found some bugs, but at the end of the day, what's happening is once you turn that machine on and it's really fully cranking, that's when we're really going to see this thing start pumping out gold.
I have to add to that as well. We have like node runners in the community who also may be a little bit absent on their current role. They may not be aware of what their role is right now. Some of them just sitting there anticipating jobs, which is great. You're in the community to run your node to get jobs and support the ecosystem, but we're at the point in time where xDai just went live. So your roles are a little bit more expanded, like offering more support, reporting bugs, and so on and so forth. So Branna, before we close out, is there any particular, I guess, direction or focus you can give node runners right now as we go through this process of growth? Like, what should we be focused on in terms of looking for bugs, or I don't know, give people, I guess, something to do?
See something, say something,
Yeah.
They say.
Yeah, that's always valid. That's one of the things that helps us a lot. Lately, what I really like seeing was that there's been several issues reported to the GitHub directly. I think it was Luke of OT Hub and a couple other people. So that's really cool. Always open for things like that, and really encouraging everybody to jump in. And if you can help us code it together, that would be perfect. But just submitting these issues, that's already a big deal. Anything you see that is maybe just even interesting to ask about, you're not sure, ask us in Discord. These questions help us because that also tells us how we can explain some things a little better. Maybe we can change the logging a little and so on. But anyway, all of these things are getting into the pipeline. And basically, a bunch of the issues that are right now on GitHub are being tackled in the upcoming release 5.0.2, which is going to introduce some cool new features. By the way, one of them that is coming up is finally the pruning feature. So the data that's no longer needed on the node can actually get removed. So that's one of the features, but there's a lot of other improvements. So we separate these features, improvements, bug fixes, and anything that you guys see like that, but not just related to the node, but also related to other things like the Explorer, like the website. It's useful because all of this feedback is going to go through the process and at some point get integrated. Yeah, so when it comes to xDai, there's a couple of things that are still being fine-tuned around the integration. One of the things has been the RPC. We've done some things around that to make sure that it's bulletproof. Similar things are going to be interesting for Starfleet as well, because we also want to make sure that all the pieces fit together really well. They need to breathe together in sync when it comes to blockchain. So there will be things that the community can engage there as well, and we will update you on that as soon as the testnet is up. So what exactly you can do and how you can contribute.
Awesome. Okay.
I was one more thing to say is the more related to the growth trajectory of a kind of having the downside of the exponential growth is that the bigger the large activity is always ahead of you. So it may be just useful to do a zoom out and figure out that we're in a very good place and get excited about the future, because it's only amping up from here on now. And like speed bumps on the way, that's fine. We'll tackle those, but yeah, just keep that that lens.
I've always had that one.
Adding to what Tomaž, I cannot stress enough how important it is that OriginTrail has fundamentals and it has the sustainability drive. And when I say sustainability drive, I mean all the activities, all the projects, all the partnerships, all the clients are actually contributing to the sustainability of this project. So OriginTrail is not here for like a few months, and we see a lot of crazy stuff right now in the industry. We have longevity. We have longevity like no other project, because we are attaching ourselves to the mainstream industries. And it's very, very important we have this in mind, that we have like a sustainability, and OriginTrail can sustain that. And actually, when we talk about time horizons, of course, we're in crypto, and it's crazy to look for the next week and next month, 3 months, it's already like age. But what we should also kind of zoom out and think about is what's going to happen in 10 years, where OriginTrail is going to be in 10 years. And this is what's most exciting for us.
Yeah. Well, guys, I'll be honest, and I know I always say this is like telling your kid that they're awesome, but I mean, no, I really think this open office hours, we hit every single point the community wanted to ask. So applaud that, and I'm excited.
You guys better say thank you when I get back in Telegram. For real.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Amos, then I'll tell you.
I'm kidding.
Yes, the hard to
We
ask.
appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for doing this again. I mean, I agree. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's been a very, very tough week behind us, and thank you very much for allowing me to kind of devote this effort we all put into this to my grandparents.
Yeah, much love to the family, man. You guys take your time, and all right. Well, hey everybody, looking forward to next week. Sounds like it could be a cool week, so we're gonna keep our eyes on the social media platforms. And thanks, and I'll see you guys next office hours.
See you guys next time. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.